It was a Friday night at the Golden Table, the kind of restaurant where gold-plated cutlery reflected light like tiny suns. Maya had been on her feet for 10 hours straight, her apron smelling faintly of coffee and exhaustion. But she kept her smile. Her mother's medicine bill was due tomorrow, and every extra tip mattered. The place buzzed with luxury. Laughter from expensive suits, clinking of wine glasses, perfume thick enough to choke a dream. Maya moved quietly through it all, like a shadow with purpose. She'd learned to stay invisible, until that night, when a man at the corner table raised his hand. "Miss." His voice was low, smooth, and commanding. The kind of voice that could sign checks worth more than her entire life. Maya turned. The man was in his 60s, silver hair, navy suit tailored to perfection. Everyone in town knew his face. Richard Hargrove, billionaire investor, rumored to own half the hotels on the coast. "Yes, sir," Maya said softly. He gave a small smile, polite but cold. "You've been attentive tonight. Would you do me a small favor?" "Of course." "Sir." He slid a sleek leather folder across the table. "A courier was supposed to bring someone to sign this, but the person's running late. I just need a placeholder, someone to sign temporarily, so I can send it out before midnight." Maya froze, her fingers hovering above the folder. Placeholder?" "Yes, nothing binding, just a formality. You'd be helping me meet a deadline. You'll be compensated." Her stomach tightened. Something about the way he said placeholder didn't sound harmless. She laughed nervously. "I don't think I should be signing business papers, sir. I could get in trouble." He leaned back, studying her. "You won't. It's nothing official." Then his eyes softened, almost kind. "You remind me of someone I used to know. You're just helping an old man save time." His tone was calm, but underneath it there was steel. Maya hesitated. He noticed and added quietly, "I'll make it worth your while." She reached for the folder, mostly because saying no to a man like him felt impossible. When she flipped it open, the top page was filled with printed names, legal stamps, and one word circled in red: Inheritance Transfer Agreement. Her throat tightened. Inheritance. She knew that word too well. It had destroyed her mother's family years ago. Maya blinked, scanning the document. The letters blurred from nerves until something caught her eye near the bottom. A name. Isabella Moore. Her breath caught. That was her mother's maiden name. Her pulse raced as she read further. There was an address, a date, and then her mother's birthday. She looked up, trying to steady her voice. "Sir, this name, it's familiar." Hargrove didn't even look up. "Coincidence. Please sign at the bottom right. Just initials." Her hand trembled over the pen. Every instinct told her no, but her mind screamed about hospital bills and eviction notices. She took a slow breath, the room spinning with perfume and piano music. Then something else, just below the line for her signature, another signature already printed there. It was faint but recognizable. Her mother's handwriting. Maya's fingers went cold. Her eyes darted back to Hargrove. He was watching her now, his polite mask cracking, the hint of a threat in his eyes. "You've seen enough," he said softly. "Just sign, and forget what you saw." Her voice barely left her throat. "Sir, where did you get these papers?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Some things are better left unknown." She froze, staring at the ink of her mother's name, and realized this wasn't a favor. It was a trap. She left the table with the folder clutched so tight her knuckles hurt. Her steps were quick but careful, weaving between linen-draped tables and servers, carrying trays of steaming food. In the kitchen doorway, she paused, heart pounding, and pulled out her phone. The photo she had snapped was still there, blurry from her hands shaking, but it showed enough. The name, The date, that little faded signature. Maya texted her roommate with one finger, too nervous to speak. "Hey, can you cover my last table? I need to step out for a sec." She hit send, then took a deep breath and stepped into the alley, where the night air hit her like a cold truth. Maya dialed her mother before she could change her mind. On the third ring, her mother picked up, voice small and wrapped in coughs. "Hi, baby. Are you working late?" her mother asked, trying to sound casual. "I need to tell you something important," Maya blurted, because she couldn't hold it back. There was a pause long enough for Maya to hear the hospital monitor in the background. "Mama," her mother said, voice softer now. "Are you okay?" Maya steadied herself. "I met Mr. Hargrove tonight. He asked me to sign something." Silence on the line sank into her like a second weight. Her mother's breath hitched. "Isabella," she whispered. That name landed like a stone between them. "What did you see, baby?" her mother asked, urgency weaving through the words. Maya swallowed hard. "There's an inheritance document. Your maiden name is on it. And your birthday." Her mother made a sound that was half laugh and half sob. "Oh, baby," she said. "I thought that was buried." Buried, but not gone, Maya realized. She pressed the phone tight. "Tell me everything, Mama," she said. "Start from the beginning." For the next 10 minutes, under the hum of the city, her mother unfurled a story in pieces. Names, dates, a man who promised marriage and disappeared, a child the family erased to shield a scandal. Maya listened, every word building a map she'd never had before. When the call ended, the alley felt smaller, but the world felt wider. More dangerous, and more possible at once. She tucked the phone into her apron and walked back into the dining room like someone who'd learned a secret costume to wear. On her tray, she balanced a bottle of champagne and a smile that had to look convincing. But behind the mask, her mind raced with the logic that would keep them safe. What to do with the photo, who to trust, how to find proof without drawing fire. As she served the billionaire's table again, the folder that started it all sat where he left it. Open, vulnerable, dangerous. Maya set down a glass and met Richard Hargrove's gaze. He raised his eyebrow, waiting. She swallowed, felt the weight of 1,000 unasked questions, and mouthed, "Why?" His smile was thin. "Because some things are better handled quietly," he said. Maya bowed her head slightly, palms sweating, and finished the table. One of the diners tapped his glass, and the pianist started a new song. Soft, hopeful, dangerous. That night, when the restaurant closed and the lights dimmed, Maya sat in her car and stared at the photo until the ink blurred again. She needed answers. She needed money. She needed to know why her mother's name was in a billionaire's file. Maya pocketed the phone and drove through the sleeping city, lights blurring into lines. Outside the hospital, she paused, watching her mother through the window, fragile and asleep. Maya whispered, "I'll fix this." The next morning came grey and heavy, like the sky had forgotten how to breathe. Maya sat at the kitchen table, stirring her coffee that had gone cold 30 minutes ago. Her mother's pills were lined up beside a stack of unpaid bills. The photo of that document glowed on her phone screen. Her mother's signature, the billionaire's name, the words inheritance transfer agreement. Her roommate, Jenny, leaned against the counter, still in her robe. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said. Maya tried to laugh. "Maybe I did." Jenny took a sip of coffee. "You're not seriously thinking of going back there, are you?" "I have to," Maya said quietly. "If I don't show up, I'll lose my job. And I need that job." Jenny frowned. "You don't owe that man anything." Maya looked at the photo again, her voice trembling. "That paper had my mom's name on it. I can't just ignore that." Jenny studied her for a long moment, then said, "Sometimes digging for the truth just gets you buried deeper." Maya didn't answer. She couldn't. Later that day, the restaurant buzzed like nothing had happened. The same laughter, the same crystal glasses, the same music. But for Maya, everything had changed. Her mind replayed her mother's voice from the night before. I thought that was buried. When Richard Hargrove entered, the air seemed to shift. Conversations softened. Even the manager stood straighter. He nodded to Maya, as if nothing strange had happened between them. "Miss Collins," he said, "good to see you're punctual." "Of course, sir." He gestured toward a quiet booth. "Sit. I'd like to talk before service starts." Maya hesitated, but obeyed. Hargrove opened a folder. Not the same one as last night, but similar enough to make her heart hammer. "I realized I may have startled you yesterday," he said. "It was never my intention." She kept her hands on her lap. "You asked me to sign something that wasn't mine." He nodded slowly. "And I understand why that made you uncomfortable. But what if I told you it could change your life?" Maya frowned. "Change my life how?" "Compensation," he said, as if that word solved everything. $5,000, maybe more, for helping me finalize a minor transaction. No harm done. No names attached." Maya stared at him. "You're asking me to forge a signature." He smiled. "Not forge, assist." Her pulse quickened. "And if I say no?" "Then," he said softly, "you keep working double shifts and praying your mother's insurance covers her next treatment." The world seemed to tilt. She wanted to scream, but instead she whispered, "You think money can fix everything?" His eyes hardened. "Money doesn't fix everything, but it keeps things from breaking worse." She stood up, trembling. "You don't know me." "I know exactly who you are," he replied. "A girl who can't afford to lose her job. A girl whose mother's hospital file is just one payment away from disaster." That last part hit like a knife. How did he know that? Her breath caught as realization sank in. He'd looked into her background. He knew everything. "Don't look so surprised," he said. "In my world, information is cheaper than sympathy." Maya turned to leave, voice shaking. "You can keep your money." As she walked away, he called out, "Think carefully, Miss Collins. Everyone has a price." She didn't look back. Outside, the sunlight burned her eyes. She pulled her phone out again, staring at her mother's name in that document. "If I don't find the truth," she whispered, "he'll bury it. And her. Forever." Maya couldn't sleep that night. The hum of the refrigerator filled the small apartment like a warning that never stopped. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the signature, the red circle on that paper, and Hargrove's face behind it. Calm, confident, untouchable. At 2 a.m, she finally gave up on sleep. She sat on the floor, laptop open, scrolling through old files and photos. Her mother's name, Isabella Moore, kept flashing in her mind like a pulse. She typed it into a search bar, not expecting much. The first results were meaningless, but then something caught her eye. An archived article from 23 years ago. Heirs Secret Charity Fund, linked to missing assistant. She clicked it. The photo loaded slowly. A grainy image of a woman standing beside a young Richard Hargrove. The woman's smile was small, shy, familiar. Maya's stomach dropped. It was her mother. Her breath hitched. "No way," she whispered. The article mentioned that Isabella Moore had once worked for the Hargrove Foundation and had vanished after a financial dispute. No criminal record, no follow-up, just gone. Maya scrolled to the comments section, where an old username had posted, "She didn't disappear. She was paid to stay quiet." The cursor blinked, waiting for her next move. She whispered to herself, "Mom, what did he do to you?" By sunrise, she had a plan. If the answers were hidden in his world, she had to step into it. After work the next day, she took the bus across town to a storage complex that appeared on the company's old tax filings. The lot was mostly empty, rows of metal doors baking in the late afternoon heat. Her hands trembled as she typed the number she'd found in the article, Unit 47B. The padlock hung broken, as if someone had been there recently. She slipped inside. Dust floated in thin lines of sunlight cutting through the slats. Boxes stacked high, labeled with years and codes. On a small desk sat an old photo frame, its glass cracked. Maya picked it up. It showed her mother again, younger, in a white blouse. But next to her stood another figure, a teenage boy, smiling awkwardly. On the back of the photo, written in neat blue ink, were 3 words. For Ethan. Always. Her fingers froze. Ethan. That was Hargrove's son. The realization hit her like ice. Her mother hadn't just worked for Hargrove. She'd been close to his family. Too close. Behind her, a metal door creaked. She spun around, heart racing. A tall figure stood in the doorway. A man in his late 20s, holding a flashlight. "Who are you?" he asked sharply. Maya stammered, I'm just looking for answers." He lowered the light slowly. His eyes narrowed as he stepped closer. "You shouldn't be here." She held up the photo. "You're Ethan, aren't you?" He stopped in his tracks, jaw tightening. "How do you know that name?" Maya swallowed hard. "Because my mother wrote it." She turned the photo toward him. "Isabella Moore. She worked for your family." He stared at the photo for a long time, something breaking in his expression. Confusion, pain, maybe guilt. "She told me she was gone," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "My father said she ran off with company money." Maya shook her head. "He lied. She was pregnant when she left." The silence between them grew heavy. Ethan looked up, eyes sharp now. "If what you're saying is true, then my father destroyed both our families." Maya nodded, her voice trembling. "Then help me prove it." He hesitated, torn between loyalty and truth, and finally said, "Meet me tomorrow night. I'll show you what my father's hiding." The next evening, rain streaked across the city, like it was washing secrets off the skyline. Maya stood under the awning of a deserted cafe, her heart thudding every time a car passed. Ethan was late. The minutes dragged. She checked her phone again. No calls, no texts. Then headlights flashed once in the distance, and a black sedan pulled up. Ethan stepped out, holding an umbrella. He looked different from last night. No tailored jacket, no sharp arrogance, just a man carrying too much weight. "Sorry," he said, voice low. "My father's been watching me closer since the documents went missing." Maya nodded. "You said you'd show me something." He motioned for her to follow. They walked in silence down a narrow alley that opened into a private parking lot behind an old office building. Ethan swiped a keycard, and a side door buzzed open. Inside, the air smelled like dust and paper. "This used to be the Hargrove Foundation headquarters," he said. "When the scandal hit years ago, my father had everything moved to a new building. But some records never got transferred." They entered a small archive room lined with cabinets. Ethan flicked on a dim light. "You might find what you're looking for here." Maya stepped closer to one of the cabinets, her hands shaking as she opened the first drawer. File after file, donation receipts, contracts, signed letters. She scanned the labels until one caught her eye. Moore, Isabella, employee file, 1998-2000. Her breath hitched. She opened it. Inside were performance reviews, pay slips, and a termination letter signed by Richard Hargrove himself. But tucked behind the paperwork was a small envelope labeled "Personal," "Confidential." Maya pulled it out and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was her mother's. "Richard, I can't live like this anymore. You said you loved me. You said the child would be safe. If anything happens to me, tell him the truth." Her voice broke. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew all along." Ethan stepped closer. "What child?" Maya looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "Me." The words hung in the air, raw and impossible. Ethan froze, his mouth parting as if to speak, then closing again. "You're saying, 'Yes,'" she said softly. "Your father is my father too." The room seemed to shrink around them. The rain outside hit the windows harder, like the storm itself was eavesdropping. Ethan backed away, shaking his head. That can't be. My father would have told me. He lied to your mother, Maya said, voice rising. He lied to mine. He used her, erased her, and pretended she never existed. Ethan turned toward the wall, pressing a hand to his forehead. If this is true, it changes everything. The board, the family trust, the estate, it's all built on a lie. Maya folded the letter carefully, her anger steady now. He made me a target. He tried to make me sign something to bury the truth. Ethan looked at her, something fierce sparking behind his grief. Then we find proof, real proof. My father keeps backups in his private vault, records of every transfer, every payment. Where? She asked. He hesitated. At his estate. It's guarded, but I can get us in. Maya met his eyes. Then we do it. For her. For both of us. Ethan nodded slowly. Tomorrow night. Midnight. Bring nothing that can trace you back. If we're caught, he'll ruin us both. As he turned to leave, Maya held the letter to her chest, her pulse pounding in her ears. Somewhere deep inside the building, a security camera blinked red, recording everything. The clock in Maya's apartment struck 11:45. Rain tapped against the window, like a warning she didn't want to hear. She paced the room, double-checking the letter from her mother tucked inside her jacket. Every part of her screamed, "Don't go!" But her mother's voice echoed louder in her memory. If anything happens to me, tell him the truth. She grabbed her phone and keys, then slipped out into the night. Ethan waited near the edge of the old bridge, leaning against his car, hood pulled up. When he saw her, he gave a small nod. You came, he said. Did I have a choice? She replied. He already tried to bury me once. They drove in silence for nearly an hour, the wipers keeping rhythm with her heartbeat. The Hargrove estate appeared like something from another world. Sprawling lawns, iron gates, and lights that never went out. This is insane, Maya whispered. How do we even get in? Ethan reached under his seat and pulled out an old security badge. My father doesn't know I still have access. We'll go through the East Service gate. Maintenance uses it. The guard at the main gate barely looked up as the car passed the scanner. Ethan's badge blinked green. Told you, he said quietly. Money buys systems, not attention. They parked behind a greenhouse that smelled faintly of roses and disinfectant. From there, Ethan led her down a narrow corridor that opened into the lower archives. Security cameras? Maya asked. He pointed to a panel. Off for maintenance tonight. My father's paranoid, but not perfect. The basement was colder than she expected, lined with glass cabinets and steel drawers. At the far end stood a vault door, old but secure. Ethan entered a code. The lock clicked, and the heavy door swung open with a hiss. Rows of files, USB drives, and safe deposit boxes filled the room. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and motioned for Maya to help search. Look for anything under Moore or Foundation settlements. He keeps duplicates of everything here. Minutes turned to hours. The air felt thicker. Then Maya's beam caught on a binder marked Confidential Trust, 1999. She opened it. Inside were transaction records, large sums transferred to an account under her mother's name. But every withdrawal had been made by someone else, Richard Hargrove himself. He stole it, she whispered. He used her name to move money. Ethan stared at the pages. That's fraud, and if it ties to the inheritance documents, he's not just hiding an affair. He's covering up a crime. Before Maya could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. Ethan killed the flashlight. Someone's here, he mouthed. They ducked behind a shelf. The light from the corridor crept into the vault, revealing a man in a dark suit. Maya recognized him instantly. Greg Saunders, Hargrove's head of security. Check the vault, Greg muttered into his radio. Motion sensor tripped again. Probably rats, Ethan whispered. Stay low. Greg's flashlight swept across the room, stopping inches from Maya's shoe. She held her breath until her lungs ached. Then, by some miracle, his phone rang. He answered, muttered something about false alarms, and left. When the door clicked shut, Maya exhaled shakily. "We can't stay here." Ethan nodded. "Grab what you can. We'll copy the rest tomorrow." As they hurried toward the exit, Maya slipped the binder under her jacket. Her fingers brushed the letter her mother had written decades ago. "Tomorrow," she said, "we end this." Ethan met her eyes, jaw tight. "No. Tomorrow, my father learns he can't buy silence anymore." Neither of them noticed the hidden camera in the corner, its red light quietly blinking to life. Morning broke over the city with a pale, uneasy light. Maya sat at the small table in Ethan's apartment, her hair still damp from the rain. The binder lay open between them, its pages marked with yellowed receipts and wire transfers that made her skin crawl. Each line told a story of betrayal. Hundreds of thousands of dollars sent from the Hargrove Foundation to an offshore account under Isabella Moore. But the signature beside every transaction wasn't her mother's. It was forged, copied, and reused to funnel money over decades. Ethan leaned over the table. "He's been laundering money through her name. That's why he wanted you to sign that fake document. He needed one last piece to tie up the chain." Maya pressed a hand to her forehead. "He's using my mother's identity like she never existed." Ethan's voice was tight. "To erase you, too." Her phone buzzed suddenly, making her jump. It was a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or your mother won't get her next treatment." Her breath caught. She showed Ethan. He frowned, jaw tightening. "He's watching us. He must have seen us at the estate." Maya whispered, "He knows where my mom is." Ethan stood, pacing. "We'll go to the police." "And tell them what?" she said bitterly. "That a billionaire forged a decades-old inheritance and threatened a waitress? They'll laugh us out of the station." He stopped pacing, thinking fast. "Then we find someone who can't be bought. A journalist, maybe, or a financial investigator." Maya hesitated, staring at the ledger. "You really think anyone would go against your father?" Ethan met her eyes. "I will." They decided to split up for the day. Ethan would reach out to a contact from the company's internal audit team, someone he trusted. Maya would go to the hospital to check on her mother. By noon, she was sitting beside her mother's bed. The older woman looked fragile, pale against the white sheets. Maya brushed her hair back gently. "Mom," she said softly, "did you ever sign anything for Richard Hargrove? Anything with the foundation?" Her mother's eyes opened slowly, hazy from medication. "Why are you asking?" "Because your name's still being used," Maya said, her voice trembling. "He's using it to move money." Her mother blinked, tears forming. "He promised me it was over. He said he'd protect you if I disappeared." "Protect me?" Maya whispered. "He's destroying everything." Her mother's hand trembled as she reached for Maya's. "There's a box," she murmured. "Top of the closet at home. Letters, receipts. I kept them, in case he came back." Maya's pulse quickened. "You kept proof?" Her mother nodded weakly. "Don't let him win again." Maya squeezed her hand. "I won't." That night, Maya and Ethan met again in a quiet diner on the edge of town. The neon lights buzzed above them, casting red and blue across their faces. Ethan slid his phone across the table. On the screen was an email. "My contact confirmed it," he said. "Those offshore accounts are real. The money's tied to shell companies that supply materials for the Hargrove Foundation. It's all connected." Maya felt her stomach twist. "We can prove it, can't we?" "Almost," Ethan said. "But we need the original transfer forms, the ones with your mother's forged signature. They're stored digitally, in my father's personal server." Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. "You can access it?" He hesitated. "Yes, but it's risky." She leaned closer, determination lighting her eyes. "Then we take the risk." Outside, across the street, a dark SUV idled. A man inside lifted his phone and murmured, "They've found the account trail." By the next morning, the air in the restaurant felt heavier than usual. Maya tried to focus on polishing glasses behind the bar, but her hands shook every time the front door opened. Every sound felt like a warning. The SUV that had followed her home the night before hadn't been there by accident. She knew that now. When she looked up, her manager was already watching her. "Maya," he said, voice uneasy. "Mr. Hargrove's assistant just called. They asked for you specifically." Her stomach dropped. "What did they say?" "They want you to come to his office. Right now." The entire staff fell quiet. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to stop. Maya forced a smile she didn't feel. "Sure. Tell them I'm on my way." Outside, she stood for a moment in the parking lot, the city wind brushing her hair back like a warning hand. She texted Ethan. "He called me in. Don't answer any calls from unknown numbers." Then she hailed a cab and headed straight into the Lion's Den. The Hargrove building loomed like a glass mountain. When she entered, the receptionist's smile was stiff. "Mr. Hargrove is expecting you." The elevator ride felt endless. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looked pale, older somehow. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway lined with modern art and silence. Richard Hargrove's office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows, polished marble, and a city view that seemed designed to remind everyone how small they were. He was standing near his desk when she walked in, hands clasped behind his back. "Maya," he said calmly, "you've been busy." She didn't answer. "I admire determination," he continued, circling her like a cat sizing up its prey. "But determination without discretion can be dangerous." Her jaw tightened. "You mean dangerous for you?" He smiled faintly. "You think this is about me? You've involved my son. You've broken into private property. You've stolen company documents. That's not bravery, Miss Collins. That's a felony." Her pulse raced. "Then arrest me. But first, tell me why my mother's name is on your financial records." His expression didn't change. "Your mother was compensated, generously. She made mistakes, and I made them disappear. You should be thanking me." Maya's voice rose. "You destroyed her life." He stepped closer. "And I can destroy yours too. Do you understand?" For a moment, neither spoke. The city below glittered through the windows, cold and endless. Then he lowered his tone. "Walk away, Maya. Take the money I'll transfer to your account tonight, $200,000, and disappear, or the people you love will get hurt." She felt her throat close. "You wouldn't." He smirked. "You've seen what I'm capable of." Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced down. One message from Ethan. "Don't trust anyone in the building. Security's compromised." She looked up again. "You're right," she said, steadying her breath. "You can buy silence, but you can't buy truth." He sighed, almost pitying. "I built an empire while people like you waited tables. Do you really think truth stands a chance?" She turned toward the door, voice shaking but firm. "Maybe not. But I do." When she stepped into the hallway, 2 men in suits were waiting. One held out an envelope. "A message from Mr. Hargrove." Maya didn't take it. She walked past them without a word, heart pounding. The moment she exited the building, her phone rang again. Unknown number. A deep voice said, "If you want your mother alive, stop what you're doing." Maya froze on the sidewalk, the city roaring around her, realizing the game had just turned deadly. Maya didn't go home that night. She couldn't. Every noise behind her felt like footsteps. Every passing car made her flinch. The voice on the phone had sounded calm, professional. Someone who didn't need to threaten twice. She ended up at Ethan's apartment just before midnight. He opened the door before she could even knock. "You're late," he said quietly. "I've been watching the street. 2 black SUVs circled the block twice." "They called me," she whispered. "They said if I keep going, my mom will pay for it." Ethan's face darkened. "He's crossing a line." Maya shook her head. "No, Ethan. He's protecting his secrets. That's what he's always done." She sat on the couch, running her hands through her hair. We have to move the evidence. He knows we took it. Ethan crossed the room and pulled open a desk drawer. The binder from the vault was gone. He froze. It was here. I locked it myself. Maya's breath caught. What do you mean it was here? I went out to meet my contact for 20 minutes, he said, voice rising. When I came back, the lock was broken. She stood, panic twisting in her chest. That's it then. He already has it back. No, Ethan said, shaking his head. If he'd have found it, we'd already be in handcuffs. Someone else took it. Who? She asked. He hesitated, eyes narrowing. Greg Saunders, my father's head of security. He's been in charge of cleaning up my father's messes for decades. If anyone could track us, it's him. Maya took a deep breath. Then we find Greg. Ethan turned to his computer, typing quickly. Greg's schedule is tight, but he has a weakness. He always visits the downtown bar near the docks after his shifts. I've seen his car there before. Maya grabbed her jacket. Then that's where we start. Hours later, the bar was a low hum of jazz music and cigarette smoke, the kind of place where everyone minded their own business. Greg Saunders sat in a corner booth, nursing a glass of whiskey, his suit jacket off, his gun still visible under his shoulder holster. Ethan whispered, "Stay behind me." They approached slowly. Greg didn't look surprised. "You kids really don't understand what you're stepping into," he said, without turning around. Maya's voice trembled. "Where's the binder?" He chuckled. "Some things don't belong in your hands. You think you're heroes? You're amateurs." Ethan leaned forward. "That binder has proof my father forged transactions in her mother's name." Greg finally looked up. His eyes were cold, detached. "Proof means nothing without context. The world doesn't care about truth. It cares about who controls the story." Maya clenched her fists. "Then maybe it's time the story changed." Greg smirked. "You sound just like your mother. Brave, stupid. She thought she could expose him, too." Her heart stopped. "What did you say?" He sipped his drink, eyes glinting. "She came to me for help once. I told her to walk away. Next thing I knew, she vanished. But you're louder than she was. And that gets people killed." Ethan's hand tightened into a fist. "You're not untouchable, Greg." Greg slid something across the table, a flash drive. "Take it. It's a copy. If you're smart, you'll destroy it." Maya picked it up, confused. "Why give us this?" He leaned closer. "Because when this blows up, I'm not taking the fall for your father." As they turned to leave, Greg called out, "One more thing. Check your phones." Maya looked down. A message had just appeared from an unknown number. "We know where you are." Ethan grabbed her hand. "Run." Outside, sirens wailed, too close, too soon. Rain hammered the streets as Maya and Ethan sprinted down the alley, the flash drive clutched tight in her hand. Sirens echoed behind them, red and blue lights slicing through the mist. They didn't stop running until they reached the riverfront, lungs burning, shoes soaked. Ethan leaned against a railing, gasping for breath. "They're not cops," he said between breaths. "Those cars! Private security! My father sent them." Maya stared at the water, trying to calm her heartbeat. "He's not even hiding it anymore. He's hunting us in the open." Ethan nodded grimly. "That means he's scared." Back at her apartment, they closed the blinds and powered on Ethan's laptop. Maya plugged in the flash drive. Folders appeared instantly, all labeled with cold precision. Transfers 1999. Offshore 2003. Settlements 2011. She clicked the first one. Dozens of scanned documents filled the screen. Signatures, bank approvals, coded transactions. Every single one carried her mother's forged name. Ethan whispered, "This is it. This is everything." But then the laptop froze. A message appeared. "Access terminated. Unauthorized use detected." Maya's stomach dropped. "He found us." Ethan yanked the power cord out. "He's tracking the drive remotely. We need a backup." Maya opened her phone camera and began snapping photos of the screen before it shut off completely. The files flickered, then vanished. Gone. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Maya whispered, "We still have the photos. That's enough." Ethan looked at her, uncertain. Enough for what? He owns the police, the press, half the damn city. She stood, voice trembling but steady. "Then we take it to someone he can't buy." "Who?" Maya hesitated, then said, "Mrs. Walsh." Ethan frowned. "The restaurant owner?" "She used to be married to a city councilman," Maya explained. "She knows people who still owe her favors. If we can get her to talk, we'll have a way in." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Let's go." It was nearly midnight when they arrived at the restaurant. The neon sign was off, but a single light glowed in the back office. Mrs. Walsh was there, sitting behind her desk with a cigarette burning low in an ashtray. When she saw Maya, her expression softened. "Sweetheart, what are you doing here this late?" Maya stepped closer. "I need your help." Mrs. Walsh listened quietly as Maya told her everything, from the fake signature to the forged accounts. When she finished, the older woman shot back, her eyes clouded with something between disbelief and fury. "That man," she said finally, voice low. "Richard Hargrove. I knew he was ruthless. But this," Maya pleaded, "please, you have connections in the council, the press, anyone who'll listen." Mrs. Walsh nodded slowly. "I do. But if I help you, he'll come after me, too." Maya's eyes glistened. "He already has. My mom's in the hospital because of him. I can't stop now." The silence stretched. Then Mrs. Walsh stubbed out her cigarette and stood. "You remind me of your mother," she said softly. "She used to work here before she disappeared. I always wondered why she left so suddenly." Maya blinked. "You knew her?" Mrs. Walsh nodded. "She was kind, brave. She didn't deserve what happened." Ethan stepped forward. "So you'll help us?" Mrs. Walsh looked between them, then sighed. "I'll make a call, but once this starts, there's no turning back." She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "It's me," she said quietly. "We need to talk about Richard Hargrove." Outside, across the street, a man in a black coat lowered his camera lens and smiled. "They took the bait," he whispered into his earpiece. The morning news hit like a punch to the gut. Maya sat frozen on the couch as the anchor's voice filled the room. "Breaking story. Billionaire philanthropist Richard Hargrove accuses former employee of blackmail and data theft. Authorities confirm an ongoing investigation into a waitress named Maya Collins." Her photo flashed across the screen, a staff ID picture she hadn't known anyone had. Ethan slammed the remote down, muting the TV. "He flipped the story," he said, rage simmering under his breath. "He's painting you as the criminal." Maya pressed her palms to her face. "He's faster than we thought. He's turning the whole world against me." Ethan paced the room. "He's using his media contacts. He must have leaked everything through his PR team." Her phone buzzed. Hundreds of messages from co-workers, friends, even strangers. Some called her a liar, others a thief. The internet was already tearing her apart. She looked up at Ethan. "We can't hide anymore. We need help from someone who knows how to fight him on paper." Ethan nodded. "A lawyer." Mrs. Walsh had already been one step ahead. She'd called a woman named Grace Holloway, a pro bono attorney with a reputation for taking on cases that scared everyone else away. When Grace walked into the small back room of the restaurant that afternoon, she looked calm and sharp, like she'd already seen every kind of monster the world could offer. She shook Maya's hand firmly. "I read the reports. You're in deep, but you're not out." Maya swallowed. "He has money, power, and everyone's trust. What do I have?" Grace smiled slightly. "The truth. It's slower, but it hits harder when it lands." They laid out the evidence. The photos Maya had taken of the forged transactions, the letter from her mother, and the flash drive Greg had given them. Grace scanned everything in silence. "This is good," she said, "but it's not enough. We need a witness." Ethan frowned. "Greg won't testify. He's too loyal to my father." Grace leaned back. "There's always someone with a conscience hiding under the paycheck. We just have to find the crack." As the three of them talked, Maya's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. "I have information about your mother. Meet me tonight. Alone. Parking lot behind City Hall." Ethan grabbed the phone. "No, it's a setup." But Maya shook her head. "If there's even a chance it's real, I have to go." Grace studied her for a moment. "If you go, you don't go alone. I'll follow at a distance." That night, the parking lot was nearly empty, except for the hum of a few streetlights. Maya stood by a bench, heart pounding. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman in her 40s, hair pulled back tight, eyes darting. "You don't know me," she said quickly. "I used to work in Mr. Hargrove's accounting department." Maya took a cautious step closer. "Why are you here?" The woman looked around nervously. "Because I saw what they did to your mother. She didn't disappear. She was paid to take the blame for missing funds that your father moved offshore. When she tried to speak up, her words cut off as headlights flashed. A black car roared into the lot. The woman panicked. "They followed me!" Grace's car screeched around the corner. "Maya, get down!" she shouted. Bullets shattered glass and echoed off concrete. The mysterious woman fell to the ground, clutching her shoulder. Maya screamed her name, but the woman only whispered 2 words before passing out. "Vault. Records." The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and coffee gone cold. Maya sat with her hands clasped, eyes fixed on the hallway where nurses rushed back and forth. Grace was talking to the police officer on duty, spinning a version of the truth safe enough to keep them both alive. Ethan paced near the vending machine, jaw clenched. The woman who'd been shot was alive, but barely. Grace came over and lowered her voice. "They're moving her to a secure room. She might not make it through the night." Maya nodded, numb. "She said something before she passed out. Vault. Records." Ethan stopped pacing. "That's where the rest of the evidence is. The real proof." Grace sighed. "And it's probably guarded tighter than the White House. We'll need a plan." Before anyone could respond, Maya's phone buzzed. The name flashing on the screen made her heart twist. Jenny. Her roommate. She stepped into the hallway to answer. "Jenny? Are you okay?" "Where are you?" Jenny's voice trembled. "There are people asking questions about you. 2 men came by the apartment. They said they were from the foundation." Maya's throat went dry. "Did you tell them anything?" "I didn't. I swear I didn't. But they left a message." "What kind of message?" Jenny hesitated. "They said if I wanted to help you, I should convince you to meet them. They'll clear your name." Maya froze. "Jenny, listen to me. Don't talk to them again. Promise me." There was a pause. "Maya," Jenny whispered. "I already did." The line went dead. Maya's stomach dropped. She turned back to Grace and Ethan, voice shaking. "She talked to them. They're using her." Ethan grabbed his coat. "Then we find her before they do." They drove through the rain-slicked streets until they reached the apartment building. Jenny's car was in the lot, but the lights in the unit were off. Maya pounded on the door. "Jenny, it's me!" After a long pause, the door opened a few inches. Jenny stood there, eyes red, hands trembling. "You shouldn't have come," she said. Maya's heart sank. "What did you do?" Jenny stepped back, revealing a man sitting at the kitchen table. Greg Saunders. "Close the door, Maya," he said calmly. "Let's not make this harder than it has to be." Ethan tensed beside her. "You're working for him again?" Greg shrugged. "I work for whoever writes the checks." Maya's voice shook. "You said you didn't want to take the fall for him." He smiled thinly. "And I won't. But you? You already look guilty in every headline. Once I turn in this little flash drive you forgot to destroy, your story's done." Jenny looked between them, tears spilling. "I didn't mean to. He said he'd protect us." Maya stepped closer to her friend. "Jenny, he doesn't protect anyone. He just uses people until they're empty." Greg stood, slipping the flash drive into his jacket pocket. "Maybe. But at least I get to walk away rich." Ethan moved first, slamming Greg against the counter. The flash drive flew across the floor. Maya dove for it, but Greg shoved Ethan off and drew his gun. "Enough!" he shouted. "You're out of your depth, both of you." Maya stood, clutching the flash drive to her chest. "Then pull the trigger. But know this, even if you kill me, someone else will tell the story." Greg hesitated, eyes narrowing. Then from outside, sirens wailed, closing in fast. Grace had called the cops. Greg backed toward the window. "You win tonight," he said, smashing it open. "But this isn't over." He jumped into the rain and vanished. Maya turned to Jenny, tears in her eyes. "Why?" Jenny sobbed. "I just wanted to help." Maya whispered, "You did, just not the way they planned." Outside, the first police lights flashed against the window. Too late to undo what was broken. The storm had passed, but the city still smelled like rain and smoke. Maya stood at the edge of the street, staring at the police tape fluttering outside her building. The flashing lights painted the night in red and blue. Greg was gone. The police were filing reports, and Jenny had been taken in for questioning. Ethan walked up beside her, coat soaked, face pale. "He'll go straight to my father," he said quietly. "Greg doesn't run, he reports." Maya nodded. "Then that's where we have to go." Ethan turned to her sharply. "You can't be serious. The estate is crawling with security." She met his eyes. "Vault. Records. That's what the woman said before she got shot. Whatever's left, it's there. The proof that he forged everything. That he ruined our lives." He ran a hand through his hair. "You're talking about breaking into my father's vault again. Last time we almost got caught." "Then we don't almost get caught," she said. "We finish it." Grace arrived minutes later, hair pulled into a tight bun, car keys in hand. "You two are insane," she said flatly, "but insanity might be exactly what we need right now." Ethan glanced at her. "You're in?" "I'm in," she said, "but we do this clean. I've got a friend in IT who can jam the estate's security system for about 7 minutes. After that, we're ghosts." They drove through the night, headlights cutting through the fog. The Hargrove estate loomed ahead like a fortress, its gates black against the silver moon. Grace parked behind the service road and handed Ethan a small device. "Jammer's live once you press that button. You'll have 7 minutes before every camera comes back online." Ethan took a deep breath. "Let's move." The three of them slipped through the east gate, keeping low. The mansion's lights were dim, but the faint glow from the study window meant Hargrove was still awake. Inside, the marble floors gleamed like mirrors. Their footsteps echoed softly as they crept toward the basement corridor. The same vault door stood at the end of the hall, heavy, metallic, humming faintly with the sound of power. Ethan knelt by the keypad. "He changed the code," he muttered. "I can't." Grace crouched beside him. "Step back." She pulled a small gadget from her bag and attached it to the keypad. "Give me 30 seconds." The lock clicked open with a low hiss. They slipped inside. Maya's flashlight swept across rows of files, drives, and sealed boxes. She froze when she saw one marked More. Confidential. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a thick folder of legal papers, deeds, transfers, and letters signed by her mother's name. But on the last page was something new. A certificate of guardianship. Ethan leaned closer. "What is that?" Maya's voice shook. "It says I was placed under the care of an anonymous sponsor at birth, funded by the Hargrove Foundation." Grace frowned. "He's been paying for you your whole life." Before Maya could answer, a voice cut through the silence. "I told you curiosity was dangerous." They turned. Richard Hargrove stood in the doorway, calm, holding a gun. Ethan froze. "Dad." "Son," Hargrove said softly. "You've disappointed me." Maya took a step forward. "You used my mother. You used me." He smiled faintly. "I created you. Without me, you'd still be scrubbing floors." Grace reached for her phone, but Hargrove raised the gun. "Don't." The timer on Ethan's watch beeped once. The 7 minutes were over. Cameras whirred back to life. Maya met his gaze, voice cold. "Then let everyone watch." The air inside the vault was razor-thin. The gun gleamed under the fluorescent lights, steady in Richard Hargrove's hand. Maya's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Ethan stood frozen beside her, his face pale, torn between fear and disbelief. "Dad, put it down," Ethan said, voice trembling. "You don't want to do this." Hargrove's tone was almost gentle. "You think I want any of this, son? You think I wanted her snooping around, dragging your name through the mud?" Maya lifted her chin. "You forged my mother's signature. You stole from the people who trusted you, and you built your empire on lies." He smiled, a hollow, chilling smile. "I built it on survival. You think truth feeds people? Truth ruins them. Your mother never understood that." Maya's throat tightened. "You loved her once." "I did," he said, eyes hardening. "And she betrayed me. She wanted me to acknowledge you. My mistake. I gave her a choice. Disappear or destroy everything I'd made." Ethan stepped forward. "You destroyed her anyway." Hargrove's jaw clenched. "She was weak." Maya's hands shook. "No, she was decent, and that's why you hated her." He cocked the gun slightly, the click echoing through the room. "Enough." Grace moved slowly, hands raised. "Mr. Hargrove, listen to me. The cameras are back online. Every second of this is being recorded. You pull that trigger, and your empire dies faster than you do." For the first time, his mask cracked. He glanced toward the small red light blinking above the doorway. Ethan seized the moment. "You always said perception is power. What happens when the world sees you like this? A man pointing a gun at his own children." The word children hung heavy in the air. Hargrove's eyes darted between them. Confusion, fury, maybe guilt flickering for a split second. "I only have one child," he said coldly. Maya stepped closer, voice breaking. "Then look at me. Really look. You see your eyes, your blood, your damn arrogance. All of it. You can't erase that, no matter how much money you throw at it." He hesitated. The tremor in his hand was small, but real. "You're just like her," he whispered. "She tried to protect you," Maya said softly. "Even after everything, she never told anyone who you were. She believed there was still something human left in you." Hargrove's grip loosened slightly, but then he caught himself, straightened, and aimed again. "She was wrong." A sudden noise shattered the tension. Pounding footsteps from the hallway. Security was coming. Grace whispered, "We're out of time." Ethan looked at his father, eyes full of both anger and sorrow. "If you pull that trigger, I swear I'll testify against you. Everything. Every deal. Every offshore account. You'll lose everything." Hargrove's face twisted. "You'd betray your own blood?" Ethan's voice was steady. "You did it first." The older man's hand shook now. The weight of his empire, his lies, his guilt, pressed down on him. The red recording light blinked brighter, like judgment itself. Finally, he lowered the gun. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then he dropped it to the floor with a hollow clang. Maya exhaled shakily. "It's over." But Hargrove's eyes met hers, cold again. "No," he said. "You don't end a war with truth. You just start a new one." Security burst through the door, guns raised. They froze when they saw their employer standing there, unarmed, surrounded by witnesses and blinking cameras. Maya whispered to Ethan, "He's not done fighting, but neither are we." The night after the vault incident felt endless. Maya sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the grainy news broadcast flickering across the old TV. The footage from Hargrove's security cameras had leaked. Someone inside the company had sent it to the press. There he was, the billionaire himself, pointing a gun at two unarmed people. Her name was on every headline again, but this time not as a thief, as a whistleblower. Ethan turned off the TV. "It's out," he said quietly. "The world's finally seeing him for who he is." Maya didn't answer. She was holding the letter her mother had written decades ago, the one she'd found in the vault. She traced the creases with her fingers, like she was trying to read her mother's thoughts through the paper. "She believed in him," she whispered. "Even after he ruined her, she still wrote to him like there was hope." Ethan sat beside her. "People like my father feed on that kind of hope. They twist it until it becomes a guilt." Maya looked at him. "And now he's going to pay for it." He didn't look convinced. "You don't understand how deep his roots go. The board, the investors, they'll bury the story under lawsuits before breakfast. He'll find a way to turn this around." She shook her head. "Not this time. We have the documents, the witness in protective custody, your testimony. The truth's out there now." Ethan sighed, leaning forward. "You're talking about tearing down a man who built an empire. That doesn't happen overnight." "It doesn't have to," she said. "It just has to start somewhere." A knock at the door cut through the silence. Grace stepped inside, her usual calm replaced by something colder. "We've got a problem," she said. "The prosecution team's being pressured to drop the case. Someone high up just froze our evidence request." Maya frowned. "What about the media?" "Half the networks already pulled the story," Grace replied. "Hargrove's PR machine is buying silence faster than we can speak." Ethan stood. "Then we go public ourselves. A press conference, live stream, something they can't censor." Grace nodded slowly. "If we do that, you'll both be targets." "Again?" Maya looked down at her mother's letter and smiled faintly. "My mom stayed quiet her whole life, and it destroyed her. I won't make the same mistake." Later that night, Maya sat outside the motel under the orange glow of a flickering streetlight. The world felt heavy, but her resolve felt heavier. Ethan joined her, holding 2 cups of bad coffee. "You ever wish you could just walk away?" he asked softly. "Every second," she said. "But then I remember why I can't." He nodded. "She'd be proud of you." "Would she?" "Yeah," he said with a small smile. "You didn't let him break you." She looked up at the stars, dim, scattered, almost drowned by city light. "I don't want revenge," she said quietly. "I just want the truth to outlive his lies." Ethan leaned back, following her gaze. "It will." Her phone buzzed, a text from Grace. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Federal Building, bring everything." Maya stared at it for a long time before whispering, "This is it." Ethan reached for her hand. "Then we finish it together." For the first time in weeks, Maya allowed herself to breathe. The night felt lighter, almost calm. But deep down, she knew calm never lasted long. Not in a world built on secrets. Somewhere across town, Richard Hargrove poured a glass of scotch, watching his empire burn on the screen, and whispered, "If they want war, I'll give them one." Morning came grey and restless. The city felt different, quiet but tense, as if everyone was holding their breath. Maya stood in front of the bathroom mirror, buttoning the only clean blouse she had left. Her reflection looked like someone older, someone who'd seen too much but still refused to stop. Ethan watched from the doorway. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. "Grace can handle the press. You don't owe anyone your pain." Maya met his eyes in the mirror. "I owe my mother the truth." He didn't argue. At 9 o'clock sharp, they arrived at the Federal Building downtown. Reporters already crowded the steps, microphones raised like spears. Grace met them at the entrance. Hair immaculate, face unreadable. "Everything's set," she said. "We go in, we speak once, and we let the evidence talk." Maya took a shaky breath. "And if he shows up?" Grace's eyes hardened. "Then the cameras will finally see what justice looks like." Inside the press room, the lights were blinding. Maya's heart pounded as she walked to the podium, every step echoing through the silence. Ethan stood behind her, shoulders straight, ready for whatever came next. Grace opened the conference with a steady voice. "We're here to present evidence of financial fraud, identity forgery, and perjury committed by Richard Hargrove, CEO of the Hargrove Foundation." The room erupted in murmurs. Maya stepped forward, clutching the folder that held copies of the forged transactions, her mother's letter, and Ethan's signed statement. She looked up, straight into the cameras. "My mother's name was Isabella Moore," she began. "She worked for Richard Hargrove 25 years ago. When she discovered his crimes, he silenced her by destroying her reputation and stealing her identity to hide his own corruption. I am her daughter, and I will not let her name die under his lies." The flash of cameras blinded her, but she kept going. Her voice didn't shake. "These documents prove he laundered money through offshore accounts using her name. He called it business. I call it theft. He called it love. I call it abuse of power." Reporters shouted questions, but she didn't stop. "He taught me one thing, that silence protects the powerful. But not anymore. Today, silence ends." Applause broke out, scattered at first, then building like a wave. Grace leaned toward the microphone. "Copies of the evidence have been submitted to the U.S. Attorney's Office. An official investigation is now underway." Before anyone could react, the back doors burst open. Richard Hargrove walked in, flanked by his lawyers. His suit was perfect, his expression composed, but his eyes burned with fury. He strode to the podium. "This is a witch hunt," he declared. "My so-called daughter is being manipulated by enemies who want to see my company fall. None of this is real." The room buzzed with chaos. Maya stared at him, unflinching. "You always said truth ruins people," she said quietly. "I guess you were right." He turned to her, voice dripping with venom. "You think this will stop me? You think the world cares about your sad little story?" Grace stepped between them. "They care about evidence, Mr. Hargrove, and about the fact that you just confirmed her claim publicly." For the first time, he faltered. Maya held her mother's letter high for everyone to see. "You took everything from her. You won't take this, too." Security approached, escorting him out as the cameras flashed wildly. His shouts faded down the hall. Ethan exhaled, a small, stunned laugh breaking through. "You did it." Maya lowered the letter, tears stinging her eyes. "No," she said softly. "We did." Outside, as reporters swarmed, the clouds finally broke, sunlight spilling across the steps like a promise of something new. The next 48 hours tore through the city like a hurricane. Every news channel carried the same story. Billionaire Richard Hargrove faces federal investigation. Images of Maya at the press conference flooded the internet. Her voice, once drowned out by fear, now echoed across the country. But power doesn't die quietly. At dawn, Ethan's phone buzzed non-stop with alerts. He scrolled through the headlines, jaw tightening. "He's fighting back," he muttered. "He's claiming you forged the evidence, that you and Grace fabricated everything." Maya poured coffee into a chipped mug, too tired to flinch. "He's desperate." "Desperate men still win sometimes," Ethan said grimly. Grace walked into the motel room, holding a folder. "Not this time," she said. "The Department of Justice just froze 3 of his offshore accounts. The investigation's expanding. They found discrepancies that go back 20 years. Maya blinked. "So it's working?" "It's working," Grace said. "But brace yourself. The higher he falls, the harder he'll try to drag you down with him." By noon, Maya's phone was flooded with messages, strangers thanking her for speaking out, former employees offering testimonies. and reporters begging for interviews. Yet with every message came new threats. You'll regret this. You don't know who you're dealing with. You'll end up like your mother. She showed the texts to Grace. Do we report these? Grace nodded. We keep everything documented. This isn't just about him anymore. It's about what people like him represent. That night, they met with a journalist from a major news network in a small diner off the highway. The man looked exhausted, but curious. You've started a fire, he said, flipping through the documents. You realize this could bring down half his board? Maya took a sip of cold coffee. Then maybe it's time someone did. Ethan sat across from her, quiet but alert. He's not going down without a fight, he warned. The journalist smiled thinly. That's what makes it worth covering. When they left the diner, the air smelled like rain again. Sharp, clean, electric. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt something like relief. But it didn't last. Hours later, a call came from Grace. Her voice was tense. Maya, they just raided one of the Foundation's warehouses downtown. They found shredded documents, backup servers, and a list of payments made to public officials. Maya gripped the phone tighter. Bribes? Millions, Grace said. And your father's signature is on every page. Ethan exhaled, shaking his head. He's done. Grace paused. Maybe. But listen, they also found something else. An unfiled medical report from 20 years ago. It proves your mother was assaulted the night she disappeared. The words punched the air out of Maya's chest. What? She never ran away, Grace said softly. She was silenced. The report was hidden by someone close to Hargrove. I'm so sorry. Maya sat down, the world tilting around her. He did it. He hurt her, and he buried it under money. Ethan knelt beside her. Maya, listen to me. You exposed him. You brought it all to light. She's finally getting her justice. Tears blurred her vision. It's not enough. I want him to face her name. Not just charges on paper. Grace's voice came through, steady. Then we finish this tomorrow. He's being summoned to testify before the grand jury. You'll be there too. Maya wiped her eyes and whispered, Then tomorrow, the whole world hears what he did. Outside the motel window, cameras flashed from a distance, proof that the world was already watching. The courthouse smelled of rain and marble polish. Outside, camera crews crowded the steps like vultures, waiting for a headline to bleed. Maya adjusted her coat and kept her head down as she walked through the flashing lights. Grace walked beside her, calm as ever, while Ethan hovered protectively at her back. Inside, the air felt heavier, a mix of whispers, perfume, and tension. Reporters filled every bench, pens poised. At the front sat Richard Hargrove, immaculate as always in a charcoal suit, but his confidence had cracks now. The smug calm was gone. His jaw worked like a man chewing on panic. When Maya entered, his eyes found her instantly. He didn't look away. The judge called the hearing to order. This session will address financial crimes, identity fraud, and obstruction of justice in the matter of the people versus Richard Hargrove. Grace leaned toward Maya. Remember, no anger, just truth. Maya nodded. The prosecutor began, voice steady and sharp. Your Honor, the defendant stands accused of fabricating documents, laundering millions through false charities, and forging the identity of Ms. Isabella Moore, his former employee and the mother of the witness, Maya Collins. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Hargrove's lawyer stood immediately. Objection, Your Honor. The witness's claims are based on emotional bias and personal vendetta. The judge didn't even look up. Overruled. Proceed. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears as she took the stand. Her palms were damp against the wooden railing. Grace gave her a reassuring nod from the table. The prosecutor approached. Miss Collins, do you recognize this letter? She looked down. It was her mother's, the one found in the vault, the one she'd memorized word for word. Yes, she said softly. My mother wrote this before she disappeared. And who was the letter addressed to? Her gaze shifted toward Hargrove. To him. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Hargrove sat perfectly still, but his knuckles whitened around the pen in his hand. Please read the final paragraph, the prosecutor said. Maya unfolded the paper, her voice trembling only slightly. If anything happens to me, tell him the truth. That's what she wrote. Who is him? My father, Maya said. Richard Hargrove. The courtroom erupted. Cameras clicked, voices rose. The judge banged his gavel. Order! Order! Maya's heart hammered, but she didn't look away. He's spent 20 years hiding it, hiding me. He forged my mother's name to steal money, to erase her, to keep his reputation clean. And when she tried to speak, he destroyed her. The prosecutor nodded. Thank you, Miss Collins. Then Hargrove's lawyer stood, smooth and smiling. Miss Collins, isn't it true that your mother had a history of emotional instability? That she fabricated stories to gain sympathy? Maya stared at him, then at Hargrove. No, the only unstable man in this room is the one who can't face the truth. The lawyer smirked. And how can you prove any of this? Before Maya could answer, Grace stood, holding up a folder. With this, she said, a medical report dated March 17th, 2000, suppressed by the Hargrove Foundation. It proves Isabella Moore's disappearance wasn't voluntary. It was criminal. The judge scanned the papers, expression hardening. Mr. Hargrove, care to explain? For the first time, Richard Hargrove didn't speak. His throat worked, but no sound came. The silence stretched long and merciless. The judge finally said, Bail denied. The court will reconvene for sentencing. Gasps broke through the air. Hargrove's composure shattered. You think this ends me? He shouted. You think truth wins in the real world? Maya stood slowly, voice calm. It just did. The bailiff took him away as flashbulbs exploded. The empire he built on lies collapsing with every step he took. Weeks passed, but the echoes of the trial still lingered in every corner of Maya's life. The headlines had shifted from scandal to aftermath. Hargrove Empire collapses under federal indictment. Whistleblower Waitress sparks nationwide reform. For the first time in years, Maya woke up without fear clawing at her chest. The sun spilled through her window, warm and clean. Her mother was recovering at a rehabilitation center just outside the city. Every morning, Maya brought her flowers and sat by her side, reading the news aloud. On one visit, her mother looked at her with glassy eyes. You remind me of who I used to be, she said softly, before fear took everything. Maya smiled, brushing a strand of grey hair from her mother's face. You gave me your strength, Mom. I just gave it back. The room filled with quiet. Outside, the trees swayed, their leaves whispering something like peace. Ethan stopped by that afternoon, holding 2 coffees and a nervous grin. You know, people still can't believe we're on the same side, he joked, setting the cups down. Maya chuckled. You mean the son of the villain and the daughter of his victim? Yeah, that's one for the history books. He sat beside her, serious now. It's more than that. You didn't just take down my father. You gave a voice to everyone he silenced. That's bigger than revenge. Maya looked out the window. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted her truth to mean something. Grace arrived later, carrying a stack of documents and her usual composed smile. You're officially free, she announced. All charges dropped, record cleared, and the foundation has been dissolved by court order. The assets are being liquidated to repay victims. Maya blinked. Victims? Dozens of them, Grace said. Employees, whistleblowers, charity beneficiaries, all people he exploited. You'll be receiving a settlement, too. Not that money will ever balance what he took, but it's a start. Maya exhaled, a weight lifting she hadn't realized she still carried. It's not about the money. I just want to help the others rebuild. Grace smiled knowingly. Then you'll like this. She handed Maya a single sheet of paper, a certificate of incorporation. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "The Moore Foundation for Truth and Advocacy." Maya stared at it, speechless. You did this? Ethan grinned. We all did. Grace handled the paperwork, and I donated the first check. It's yours to run, to protect people like your mom, like you. Her throat tightened. I don't even know what to say. Say yes, Grace said simply. Maya laughed, wiping away a tear. Then yes. That evening, they held a small gathering at the restaurant where it all began. Mrs. Walsh had reopened it after months of closure, this time under new ownership, hers. The staff toasted Maya with cheap champagne and genuine smiles. To truth, Mrs. Walsh declared, and to the girl who refused to stay quiet. Everyone cheered. As the laughter filled the room, Maya slipped outside for a moment. The city lights shimmered like 1,000 new beginnings. Ethan joined her, hands in his pockets. Do you ever think about what's next? He asked. She looked up at the stars. Every day, but for once I'm not afraid of it. He smiled softly. Then maybe that's what freedom really is. For a long moment, they stood in silence. No secrets, no lies, just two survivors breathing in the quiet. Then a courier approached, handing Maya a small envelope. Inside was a plane ticket, one way, and a note that read, For your next chapter, an old friend. She smiled, eyes shining in the city glow, ready to start again. The morning of her departure was quiet, the kind of silence that felt earned. Maya stood in her small apartment, now half empty, sunlight painting gold across the boxes stacked by the door. The envelope lay on the counter. A plane ticket to Paris, dated for that very afternoon. No sender name, just those 4 words, for your next chapter. Ethan leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her fold the last of her clothes. You sure you want to do this? He asked. She smiled faintly. For the first time in my life, I get to choose what happens next. I can't turn that down. He nodded. I guess you deserve a break from all this chaos. Maya zipped her bag and looked around one last time. It doesn't feel like an ending, she said quietly. Just something new. They drove through the city together, passing billboards with her face on them, headlines celebrating the waitress who exposed a billionaire. It still didn't feel real. People waved when they recognized her at stoplights. Some even shouted thank you through open windows. She'd become a symbol without ever trying to be one. At the airport, the announcement boards flickered above the noise of rolling suitcases and departure calls. Grace was waiting by the gate, holding a folder. Before you go, she said, handing it over. The foundation needs your signature to finalize leadership. You're officially the director. Maya laughed. So I get a charity and a plane ticket. What next? The key to the city? Grace smirked. Don't tempt me. They actually offered that. Ethan rolled his eyes. You're turning into a celebrity. Maya smiled at both of them. I don't want fame. I just want people to remember her, my mother. The rest doesn't matter. Grace's expression softened. They will. Every policy that changes, every worker who finds their voice, that's her legacy now. For a moment, Maya couldn't speak. She just reached out and hugged them both. You two saved me, she whispered. You made me believe I wasn't fighting alone. Ethan pulled back with a crooked smile. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Don't disappear like she did. Keep in touch. Maya nodded. Always. When her flight was called, she took a deep breath and turned toward the gate. For once there was no fear, no doubt, no billionaire looming over her shoulder, just the sound of possibility. Hours later, she sat by the plane window as the city shrank beneath her. The clouds glowed pink against the rising sun. She pulled out her mother's letter, the same one that had started everything, and unfolded it gently. The ink was fading, but one line still stood clear. Truth will always find its way home. She smiled, whispering, It did, Mom. Across the aisle, a stewardess paused. "Miss Collins, a passenger asked me to give you this." Maya frowned and took the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Her mother, young and smiling, standing beside a small cafe in Paris. On the back, a note read, "She used to dream of this place. Now it's yours to see." Maya's eyes filled with tears she didn't try to hide. Somewhere far below, oceans stretched toward the horizon, endless, alive, waiting. When the captain's voice came over the intercom, announcing the descent, Maya pressed her palm against the window and whispered, "No more secrets, no more silence." As the plane cut through the clouds, sunlight poured over her face, and for the first time, she felt completely free. So that's it, my friends. The story has finally come to an end. If you're still here, still listening right now, it probably means something in this journey touched you in a way words can't quite explain. Maybe it reminded you of how truth always finds a way through the dark, or how no matter how powerful the lie, courage always outlives fear. Maya's story isn't just about fighting a billionaire. It's about facing the parts of ourselves we're afraid to see. As the Stoics used to say, what stands in the way becomes the way. Pain, betrayal, loss. They aren't walls. They're mirrors showing us who we can become when we refuse to break. Sometimes healing isn't about forgetting the past, but owning it so completely that it can't own you anymore. And that's what she did. What all of us can do. If this story made your heart feel a little heavier, but also a little stronger, then share it. Let someone else feel that spark too. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us. Because this isn't just another drama. It's a reminder that the truth, no matter how small, always wins when we dare to speak it.